Once you have found several resources that you think you can use in your annotated bibliography, you are going to start adding them to NoodleTools. You will still need to evaluate them in depth, but you can start organizing them in NoodleTools. From your library research guide, go into the NoodleTools tab. This section of the guide is extremely detailed. You will notice there are a bunch of subsections, and you can refer to these if you need specific help. There are lots of screenshots to show you exactly what you're supposed to do. And you can also reach out to me. You can email Karen Reed at the GCC Library, karen.reed@gccaz.edu. We are going to log into our NoodleTools accounts and enter your MEID and password. Next, it will ask you to log into your NoodleTools account. So put in that username and password that you made up, and let me know if you can't remember. Just sign in, and this will take you to your project screen. So here are a number of projects I've created. You might only have the one. It tells me which projects I'm collaborating on. I'm going to open up my annotated bib project. And from here, I'm going to go into the Sources tab. I have already added two sources as the sort of examples you can look at later. Anytime I add a source, it tells me what type of source it is. So I can see from here that I have only got two reference sources. And for my bibliography, I need a mix of reference sources, open websites, art objects, and other resources. So right now I don't have the proper number of references. So keep that in mind. This list will show you exactly what you have. To add a source, click on New Source. And this is the most important part. You need to identify where you found your information. Did you get it from a library database, an open website, or do you have a book in your hand, a print book? Most likely you're going to use database or website. So I'm going to click website. Maybe I found my art image on that Met Museum website. In fact, I know I did. Now from here, you have to select what kind of resource you are citing. By now, I hope you have some understanding of the difference between a reference resource, a journal article resource, or a work of visual art. Those are the three things you're most likely going to be citing. You might also, if you're using an open website, have a web page on a website. For your art objects, you want to use that you found them on a website and that they're a work of visual art. So depending what you select from this drop-down list, a different form will be generated. And you're going to fill out all of the information on the form. At the bottom of the form, there's a section for annotation. You probably haven't completely evaluated and looked at your sources yet. So you might want to put some general notes here about your resource, and you can go back and edit this later. When you go into a field in NoodleTools, an information sign pops up, and it gives you direction. This teaches you about MLA format so that you do it properly. If I put the name of my museum website in here, and then I go over to publisher of the site, I will learn that if the museum website name is also the publisher's name, then I leave this field blank. So there are going to be certain parts of the form that you leave blank, and that's okay. For example, under artist, many of our art objects are so old that we have no idea who created the object. So oftentimes you're going to leave this field blank. Don't put the word unknown in here because the artist's name is not unknown. You just want to leave it blank. You also want to say what kind of art you have, if it's a painting, a photograph, a sculpture, or maybe it's a piece of jewelry, so you would put other in that case. I can help you fill out the form if you are running into difficulty. I'm going to cancel this and go back. If I wanted to add another source, I would click New Source. Maybe this time I found my information on a database page, and maybe it's a reference resource, like I found it from an encyclopedia. Now a different form is generated. I need to know the name of my database, which I can either type in or select from a drop-down menu, which is quite lengthy. I can also help you with finding the name of your database if you're confused. You want to enter the URL of the database, and this is important. You need to find the permalink of the database. There is information on the guide about that. When you're in a database, you can't just copy and paste from the top like you normally do. You have to find the permanent link. And then there are different fields that you fill out. Just like with your art object, oftentimes on a reference material, you do not have a specific author's name. Leave it blank. You will have an article title. You may or may not have page numbers. And almost always, you're going to have an editor. Then you're going to say what type of reference source it is. Is it a dictionary, an encyclopedia, or other? For some of the reference resources I linked in your guide, like that Countries, People, and Culture and the Art World History in 2 volumes, you're going to select Other. The annotations are going to be important. You really have to think about the worthiness of your source, and you should be choosing the very best sources you can find. Then in your annotation, you're writing a lengthy paragraph explaining the value of the information source to your research. And when you are all finished, you are going to hit Save to save your citation. Right now, I'm going to cancel. Okay, I added a few citations to my bibliography. And momentarily, NoodleTools is going to show me those annotations, and I will show you how to print and export them properly into Word or Google Docs. So here's my list of annotations, or my citations and annotations. And I have a work of visual art, a reference, a journal article, and another reference article. I only have 4 of my 6 sources. I would need to add 2 more, but for right now, I'm just showing you an example. If you need to edit any of your entries, go into Options and Edit. That brings the form back and you can make any changes. You can also delete a citation from here. So if you have something on your Sources tab that you decide you're not going to use in your final product, you're just going to delete it. But be careful about deleting. Be sure you want to delete something before you do. Okay, when I'm ready to export this into Word, I'm going to go up to Print Export, and I can either do Word or Google Docs. And I'll show you both. Also, I want to look at my formatting options. This is important. Formatting options gives you all of these options. You want to look at your spacing, and its default is that they're expecting really brief annotations, but you have longer annotations. So you want to add a line, a space between your citation and your annotation, longer annotations. You can also go into the page header, and you can say, I want my last name to be next to the page number. So check with your instructor about what she wants your annotated bibliography page to look like. And then when you're all done, you set your header and you close. Now you can print this and export it into Google Docs or into Word. You're going to choose your account that you're going to go into, and it's going to generate. And now this is what your annotations are going to look like, or what your annotated bibliography is going to look like. It's in alphabetical order, and it is spaced properly on the page. Obviously, for this one, I didn't add an annotation, so this is just an example. I can also, if I prefer Word, I can export it into Word. It goes down here. I'm going to open up Word. I'm going to enable editing. And there is my gorgeous annotated bibliography. I've got my last name and my page number, and everything again is in alphabetical order, and it looks properly done on the screen. You might have lots of questions about NoodleTools. You might also wonder why you're not just using the citation feature in the databases. Here's the citation feature. And the reason for that is there are oftentimes mistakes in these computer-generated citations. For example, in this one, that HTTPS shouldn't be there. And there are some things that are little tiny errors that I can see that you're probably not aware of, but I see them. You can use the citation feature to grab information such as your editor's names, and you can add these, you can use them to populate or to fill out your form. In the meantime, if you have questions, remember you can always get a hold of me, and you can always refer to your NoodleTools section of the guide, which is pretty detailed. And my contact information is on the guide as well.